So next on the agenda is a man that I don't see, who is also a friend of mine. Is Todd out there in the hallway, Earl? I can't dance or sing, so I provide no entertainment between now and when Todd reaches the stage. Todd, come on up to the front. You can't present from the back to, you know. So Todd Bloch is approaching the stage, and Todd is going to talk to us about airport, aviation, development, business strategies, and so forth, and how your local assets in that regard can help with your economic development efforts. Todd, if you're ready, take it away.
All right. You got? Can you hear me? Is this working for my advanced height? All right. Well, looking around the room, I want to start out by saying thank you for having me here. Thanks for the introduction, John. I have known John for a long time. One of the first people I met in Frankfurt. He coached my kids in soccer. He's a great soccer coach, if anything else. But again, thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you. I'm going to tell you about technology that's right around the corner. That's really going to change our lives. And when I say it's right around the corner, it really is, and it is amazing how many people are not aware of it. I'm going to try to drive that point home today. And I know this is the last session of the day, so you might check out early or not plan to check out early, but just fall asleep. I want to give you the bottom line up front, and that's that with this new technology, with this new era that we're moving into, our airports are more important than they've ever been in our history. And listen to me when I say that. Just think about that, and if I don't get that across in this presentation, it's because I'm a terrible presenter, because it should be obvious, and I can work with you afterwards. But that's what I want to let you know. I liken our airports to being like train stations in the 19th century. If your community had a train station, people were there. Your community grew. If your community didn't, it most likely diminished and died. So that's the main point. I will say this morning my wife said, "So what are you doing today?" And I said, "I'm going to Danville." She goes, "To do what?" I go, "Talk to leaders." And she goes, "What are you going to tell them?" I said, "About airports." "Well, what specifically are you going to tell them?" And that's a good point. I do need to tell you specifics, and I'm going to try to get that out. But a little bit about myself first. I am as my next slide would, do I have control of the slides? Oh, I do. I didn't get trained on this. Let's see. Okay, as my next slide shows, I'm learning. Every day's learning experience. I'm a military veteran. I have an unusual military career. I served half my career in the Army and half in the Coast Guard. I am a servant at heart. I'm a public servant at heart, and I always want to see things get better. I was very fortunate in my military career, half of it, 16 years in the Army. The most significant achievement was I got to go to Bosnia to help keep the Bosnians from killing each other. So I didn't really ever get involved in any of the conflict. And I transitioned to the Coast Guard right as our country transitioned to the war on terror. So that was fortunate timing for me. I got to spend a lot more time saving lives than being in sandboxes in various places doing other things. The military gave me an incredible amount of experience. I was a helicopter pilot. It taught me to lead. It taught me to recognize when you're in trouble, who's good leaders, who's not good leaders. And I gained a lot from that. Ended my military career. I started with the state in the Department of Aviation. I started out as a deputy commissioner and then as also a helicopter pilot there. If you don't know about the Department of Aviation, it's about the smallest department in KYTC. KYTC has 4,400 people in it and 4 departments. I was in charge of one of them as the commissioner, and I had 23 people in my department. and the vast majority of those people were there to service the airport in Frankfurt or take care of our aircraft there. So on any given day, the Department of Aviation has 4 people working for all of our public airports in the state. Right now, that's currently 57 airports across the state. 6 of them are commercial. 5 of those 6, you can buy a ticket and fly somewhere. Those are not the primary focus of the Department of Aviation. It's on general aviation airports like the one you have here in your community. And it's a great opportunity. We worked very hard. The other department, the highway department, which has the bulk of the 4,400 people, has 12 districts to look out for the roads across the state. The Department of Aviation has 4 people statewide, so small in size, big in focus. I left state service in June, and last month I got employment with an engineering consulting firm, American Engineers Incorporated, based out of Glasgow. This was a very good thing for me. I wanted to continue working with airports. I wanted to continue, I had started a lot of initiatives for developing airports, especially working on education and workforce development in the aviation arena, and working for AEI, who has one of their roles is supporting airports. They serve 9 airports in the state. Besides doing other engineering consulting things, I get to continue that, so I'm excited about that. So I guess I'm sitting here with leaders, and I'm here to advise you on where I think you should invest your resources. And I know that resources are always shorter than the needs, and so you got to be choosy. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll say, "Oh boy, we've got to do aviation." But so that's what I'm here to do, and I'm going to start out with the 5 W's to try to help guide us on that. Who am I speaking to? I'm speaking to leaders, and I understand that we've got elected leaders, community leaders, economic development officials, hopefully some educators in here. Again, education and workforce development is a huge part of the aviation future, and we've got tremendous needs there. And you're here to plan for how to address tomorrow, and I'm here to help. Everybody who has spoken today are here to help. I'm going to fill in the next 3 blanks on the when. When should you invest in aviation? The answer is easy, and it's right there. The answer is today. Advancements in transportation and communication technology are going to drive so many aspects in our life, and aviation is one of the few ways that you'll be able to keep up with that pace. And where do you do that? You do it at your airport. All aviation starts at airports. People don't realize that. They think of aviation as going to Louisville or Lexington and getting on a plane. None of that happens without the airport here in Danville. That's where the interest is created. That's where the pilots are created. That's where people learn to become mechanics, and they support that industry. It doesn't happen without our GA airports. So it has to happen at the airport. And why airports? I said it earlier. The way we are living and shopping now, we demand everything right away, and aviation is the only thing that can keep up with that pace. So I have this slide up here. I haven't spoken publicly really in a couple of several months, if you can believe that for some reason, but I have a tendency to say it's taking off or we're taking off, and I realize sometimes I confuse people. Am I speaking figuratively or literally? And when it comes to success, I'm happy to report that it's the same thing. Taking off is success in aviation. It is the essence of aviation. It is also the essence of success in anything you endeavor to do. And I don't think I'm exaggerating at all when I say that to stay on the ground is failure or stagnation. It's taking off that moves you forward. Flying is good, stagnation is bad. And if you think otherwise, I don't want to be, too hard on anybody with this, but I think you're ignoring progress, the progress of man, from being hunched over, making a wheel, to where we are now, where we can order food on our phones and have it here in 15 minutes. Progress is going to dictate this, and aviation is the answer to that. Necessity, ingenuity, and opportunity are going to drive this progress, and the fastest way to proceed is through the air. So now I want to tell you why I think aviation is so important. I've just sat here and I've talked for, I don't know how long, about the importance of aviation. Now I'm going to tell you why. There are a lot of reasons why, or a lot of indicators out there that tell me you need to invest your time and resources in aviation. The first is this statistic, or this study that was done by Boeing, one of the largest producers of aircraft and aircraft support. They are putting a lot of brain power into predicting how many planes are going to need to be built. And they can build as many planes as they want, and if there isn't professionals there to operate those planes, it's useless. So they are letting the industry know, we're going to build these planes over the next decade and a half, and we need you to resource them with the professional staff. This study that's been updated since COVID says that by the end of the next decade, we will need over 2 million aviation professionals, and specifically pilots, mechanics, and cabin crew people. 2 million, and that is something 5 times the number we have right now, and there is no pipeline in America that can produce that number of pilots, or actually there's no pipeline in the world that can produce these professionals. But if you think they're not going to be produced, you're crazy, because business will demand it and it's going to get done. So why not do it here in Danville? Why not do it in London? Why not do it anywhere where we have airports in Kentucky? Build this workforce here, and you're going to create high-paying jobs, very satisfying jobs, and usually when people make their way in the world, they come back home and they try to bring it back home. So it's a tremendous opportunity. And this 2 million person figure doesn't even take into account that at an airport, pilots, mechanics, and cabin crew make up the smallest portion of people at the airport. There is a lot of management, operations, engineering, all kinds of other fields that are required to support aviation. So that's one reason why I'm going to say you should invest in aviation. The next reason I've kind of touched on, it's the speed at which we do business. We demand stuff now. We're getting used to that. If you order something, you want it tomorrow. If you have to wait 3 days, it's kind of a hardship, right? So this isn't going to go away. This isn't going to get better. And currently, our supply chains, our transportation systems have been able to do pretty well. You're able to get stuff on a Sunday when you order it on a Friday. That's pretty impressive. But that, like I said, that's just going to increase. I'm going to tell you, interestingly enough, I don't know if anybody's seen this, but the picture in the middle shows a little automated package delivery thing. Has anybody seen this anywhere? Last month I went to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Oh, you got to see that? It's pretty impressive. Ann Arbor, they're very forward-leaning, I guess, because of the university there. But I saw people walking around following these things, taking notes. Obviously they're experimenting with them, but this exact thing, I saw cars that were driverless, where people were following the cars. This is coming. I told you earlier, this is right around the corner. This stuff is coming. So aviation supports this consumer demand, and it doesn't just affect the e-retail market. It affects how all businesses operate today. And I don't know how many businessmen are in here. I'm not a businessman, but if you are not adapting your business to the way business is done, you're going to be in trouble. This is called the Amazon effect. It's been studied. It's been considered a powerful disruptor, and it affects pricing. It affects how you market things. And so if you're not an e-retailer, you have a brick and mortar store, you have to adjust your pricing so that they can't buy it cheaper on Amazon. Otherwise, you're not going to make the sales. But on the plus side, you can take advantage of this, and if you have a shop in downtown Danville, you can market your goods all across the nation. So it's a two-edged sword. This e-retail environment, this Amazon effect, there are opportunities and pitfalls on both sides. But the great thing is, aviation is going to get those products there fast because that's what's going to be demanded. And so the closer you are to an airport, you may not be directly putting your goods on an airplane to go, but somebody is. That's how stuff is moving so quickly. The next thing that points to why aviation is so important is the way business is changing. And like I said, I'm not a businessman, just like I'm not a watchmaker, but I know what time it is. Businesses are large, and they like to diversify themselves. They like to put, one asset of their business in this location or create another one somewhere else, and they have headquarters in a single location. Business aviation relies on aviation, businesses rely on aviation to make that distance less of a factor. And here are a few infographics from the National Business Aviation Association. And I put up a mix, ones that show how much business is using aviation, which shows why you need to have good airports so that businesses can use these airports. For example, 80% of the flights are to small communities. 80% of business aviation flies to small communities. More than 42% are to places that do not have commercial service. Does anybody know a place that resembles that? That's why these small airports are so important. And on the economic development side, you can see that one jet can bring a community $2.5 million a year in revenue. People don't think about that. They think of the airport and the airplanes as playthings for the rich, but they don't recognize that when they see these business aircraft, it means money. Just like when you see an SUV driving down the street, what that means is somebody who has a job, who owns a house, who has kids in school, that's all revenue. And business aviation is a huge form of revenue. How many jets are, Patty, or are here at the Danville Airport, or Rob? Yes. 3 business jets. That's significant. That is a very significant figure. So the upside is communities and airports benefit from business aviation in more ways than one. The other thing one thing that I learned for sure while I was in the Department of Aviation is that when businesses are looking to expand, and we have an expert sitting right over here, often the first requirement they give to an economic development cabinet is, okay, show me all the places that have an airport. And if you don't have an airport, you lost business that you never knew you had an opportunity for. Show me a place that has an airport. The airport may not bring you the business, but not having it certainly will lose you the business. So Danville is blessed to have a really good airport right here. Okay, now the most exciting thing, and I think the most interesting thing that tells me we are on a new era and why we need to invest in our airports and invest in aviation is because we are. We're moving into a new era in aviation. We are on the dawn of the electric age of aviation. Now, I have some questions I can ask, and I already asked one, and you raised your hand. Thank you. I can ask these rhetorically or actually solicit answers, and so you guys tell me by raising hands if you really want to answer them. But who knows what the last era of aviation was? Does anybody know what it was? It was the jet age. The jet age was the last new era in aviation. And when do you think that started? Anybody? 1951. The first jet commercial aircraft took off. And what that did was that changed the size of the world. It made business much faster and much more global. And that's why it was a new era. It changed the way people traveled and did business. We are literally standing on the edge of the electric age of aviation. I have to add this, that the great part about aviation, the jet age, was that it made things faster, but jet aviation carries a heavy footprint for size of runways and for environmental impact. If I was the commissioner of aviation, I don't know if I would have told you this, but I'm not anymore, so I will say it's predicted that the way we are trending with our vehicles and our transportation, that if nothing changes, that by the middle of the 30s, in 2035, aviation will be the largest producer of greenhouse gases of any transportation method. So aviation is looking at that. They're looking at ways to address that. The electric age might very well solve that problem, and I think it's going to go a long ways. The electric age holds so much promise, and it's going to carry the water when it comes to this fast transport we're talking about. And so let me tell you about the electric age and what the promises about the electric age of aviation is. Lower operational costs. On my next slide, I'm going to show you one of the aircraft that's out there. And this next aircraft that I'm going to show you, if you didn't come to the KBT mid-year event, this next aircraft should get you very excited. But it's a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. It has 6 rotors on it, and those 6 rotors each are powered by 2 redundant engines. But there's only one moving part at each rotor. So there's almost no moving parts on this plane. And if anybody does anything with mechanics, you know that the more moving parts you have, the more things cost. So electric aviation is going to cost a lot less. Some estimates are that flying an electric airplane, like an electric Cessna 172, will cost 1/5 of what a gas-powered plane will cost in overall cost. So when you see that, you will see that aviation is going to become more accessible. If it costs 1/5 of what to operate, it's going to be more accessible. The next thing is the carbon footprint. Obviously, we can generate our energy from non-carbon-based methods, wind and solar, and that's the great thing about airports. If you plan, you might be able to put up solar fields that power a significant part of your electric aviation, making your aviation much more carbon neutral. But right now, kind of interestingly, a lot of electric aviation and electric cars is powered by coal. But that's just where we are with our power supply right now. The next thing about electric aviation is that it's quiet. I'm going to play a video, hopefully it works, I think, here shortly, and it's going to demonstrate how quiet electric aviation is. But electric motors produce a lot of torque, and this company, Joby, that I'm about to show you, they're able to have low rotor speeds at high pitch, which create much less sound. And they will basically say that their aircraft is almost whisper quiet. And anybody who lives near an airport or anybody who has anything to do with airports know that noise is always an issue. So it's going to make it quieter, which is good. It's also going to make it safer. There's so much redundancy that they can build into these systems. So that's another big plus. But the biggest promise of electric aviation is accessibility. When you drive these costs down of aviation and increase the demand for speed, electric aviation is going to be there. I honestly feel that in the near future, in the next 5 or 6 years, there's going to be the equivalent of an electric flying bus that basically rotates around airports in eastern Kentucky, because it's just much quicker to get anywhere by air, when you drive around Kentucky roads. Okay, so now also it's going to be cheaper because these companies are going to offer ride sharing, so you're not going to have to own these aircraft. This company right here, Joby, their model, and they already have a partnership with Uber, is that anywhere you want to go, you got a phone. Who has the Uber app? Anybody have the Uber app on their phone? All right. If you've ever used Uber, it knows where you are, you tell it where you want to go, and it gives you options. Well, in 3 years, one of the options is going to be Uber Air. And so you're here in Danville, you need to get to Lexington because you need to catch a flight, or you need to go to Keeneland or whatever. You're going to say, I need to go to Keeneland, and it's going to come up Uber Black, Uber X, Uber Air, and it's going to give you a price, and you're going to hit it. And if it's Uber Air, if you're near a place where these aircraft can land, it'll come right to you. If you're not, because it's a partnership with Uber, a car is going to drive up, you're going to get in that car, it'll take you one of these aircraft, that aircraft will take you to as close to your destination as it can. If necessary, there'll be ground transport there, and it'll be all invisible to you. It'll just be a matter of buckling your seatbelt 3 times. That's how hard it'll be. And Joby claims that they're going to try to get their prices right at UberX prices. They're not going to be, Uber Air isn't going to be uber expensive. It's going to be priced like cars. So this is Joby. It's, I would think, one of the leaders. There's 15 companies that are very close to releasing these aircraft. But this aircraft has already flown thousands of hours. Last month it did a 150-mile flight. It is a piloted aircraft and always will be piloted aircraft. It's being certified as a normal aircraft, so it requires no special certifications, no special exceptions with the FAA. It's just an airplane. And you're going to see in the video there's not a pilot in it, and you're going to be thinking, well, they're saying it's going to be piloted, but they're probably not going to be piloting them eventually. Well, if you know anything about certifying aircraft, you know that's not true. When was the last time you rode in a plane with a cigarette or an ashtray in the arm? Not too long ago, I'm sure, right? And you wonder, why is this ashtray here? We haven't been able to smoke since 1979. Well, that's because the airplane was certified with that ashtray in it, and it would be too expensive for them to take that out and have the plane recertified. This plane is always going to be piloted, which is going to increase the demand for pilots that weren't in the Boeing study. This carries 4 passengers and 1 pilot. It can go 150 miles an hour. No, it has a 150-mile range. It can go 200 miles an hour. It has 6 rotors. Each one has 2 redundant motors. Each motor has 2 redundant batteries. And if it loses a motor, it simply shuts down. And if it loses a rotor, because it has to lose 2 motors to lose a rotor, it shuts down the opposite engine, and it can fly on 4 engines all day. And it has safety devices so that, like a helicopter, even if for some reason it lost all power, it could auto-rotate safely to the ground. And I'm a helicopter pilot, I know that works. Let's go ahead and show this video. Now this video is, it isn't meant for you. It was the founder of the company, and he was telling his staff how excited he was. But in the background, you're gonna see he's standing about 50 yards from the aircraft. It's gonna start up, take off, and fly away. It's gonna rustle his hair in his suit, and you barely hear the aircraft. That's just a demonstration that 1, this thing flies, and 2, it's silent. Is it working? 1 second. This company just went public last month, so if you're looking to invest, I'm not sure if it's going to be the next Amazon or anything, but this is coming. Somebody is going to succeed at this, and these guys are the leaders. While they're still getting that up, this company is based in California. They have a presence in Germany, and they have a plan to release this aircraft, not for sale, but again as a ride-sharing platform. And the first place they take it is going to be a place that has a pretty good population density and pretty good weather. And they haven't declared where that's going to be. We had them come visit us in June, and they were very impressed with Kentucky. I don't know if Kentucky will be the first on their list, but I think we're going to be very high on their list. They also don't have a place to manufacture these. And they are not going to be able to keep up with the demand. Once they start releasing these, their model is that they do not want customers to have to wait. If you ask for Uber Air, it's got to show up. Because if you ask for Uber Air and it's not available, you're going to stop asking for Uber Air. So they're going to make sure they have enough aircraft wherever they put these. All right, so we're ready for the video.
I'm Joe Ben, the founder of Joby Aviation. Growing up, I dreamt of building an airplane that I could fly from the meadow amidst the redwoods where I was born. A new form of quiet and clean mobility. And at Joby Aviation, that's what we've been working on for more than a decade. Behind me, you can see how close we are to realizing that dream. This aircraft is all electric. While quiet in vertical takeoff, it is near silent in flyover, opening unprecedented new opportunities for traveling both in congested cities and underserved rural communities. Our long-term vision is to build a global passenger service with this aircraft, saving 1 billion people an hour every day, while helping to protect our precious planet. Today, we're taking a really big step toward that goal. we're merging with Reinvent Technology Partners, a special purpose acquisition company led by Reid Hoffman, Mark Pincus, and Michael Thompson. By combining our companies and becoming a public company, we are securing Joby's future, allowing us to focus on certifying our aircraft and preparing for the start of passenger flights in 2024. Our merger has been designed to deliver unprecedented long-term alignment of the company leadership, existing investors, and the Reinvent team to deliver on this audacious goal of building a new human transportation network. I am so incredibly grateful to each and every person who has contributed to this ambitious effort. Thank you to the Joby team for your inspiring determination and dedication. Thank you to our investors and partners for making this work possible. Thank you to the team at Toyota for working side by side with us as we prepare to manufacture at scale. And finally, thank you to all of you in the global community for cheering us on. We still have a long and challenging journey ahead of us, but with the Reinvent team at our side, we are one step closer to making this fantastic future real. We can't wait to welcome you on board. Thank you so much.
So did I tell you it's close? It's really, really close. So again, that video wasn't for us. It was for his staff, you know, because they're doing this new thing. But this aircraft is flying, and I really think that they're going to bring tremendous opportunities to places like Danville, to Kentucky. Another aircraft that's out there is the Ilium Jet. This thing, it says jet, it's an electric aircraft. It can carry 6 passengers and a pilot. It can fly to 10,000 feet at 175 miles per hour, and it has 155-mile range. And it first flew, it's not certified, but it first flew in October 2019. The certification process is long. But they have a really good partnership with Florida. They already have a bunch of places that they're planning to put this thing in Florida. So the opportunities are out there. Here's some aircraft, an aircraft that's currently flying. The one on the left is the Eflyer 2. It's a private aircraft that carries 2 people. The Eflyer 4 is just about to be released. And then on the bottom right is the E800. And the E800 is an electric commercial commuter aircraft. It's capable of carrying 8 passengers at 320 knots, which is close to 350 miles an hour. To 35,000 feet like a commercial airliner, and has a 500 nautical mile range with a 45-minute reserve. That's a commercial aircraft. And with an aircraft like this, you know, the distances are going to grow quite small. This one is a very good-looking aircraft, the Age of Aviation. This one can go 440 nautical miles at 250 knots and carry 9 passengers. So this aircraft here is from a company called Beta, and on Friday, Rob and I are going to be going up to Springfield, Ohio, which has already put the infrastructure in for this aircraft. This is an all-electric aircraft, and they're partnering with UPS to transfer cargo between distribution hubs. So this isn't going to come to your house, but it's going to carry 1,500 pounds worth of packages from a distribution hub to another distribution hub, or perhaps to this airport where they'll get loaded into a brown truck that will come and fly a drone to your house and do the last mile. But again, they've already got the infrastructure for this plane there, and we're going to go up and see that, and we're going to fly the simulator. And also that airport, very forward-leaning, they partnered with Tesla to install chargers in their parking lot. They ran the cable under the fence, and there are chargers for planes. There are electric planes. If you prepare for them, those electric planes are going to come to your community. If you want to start a business where you use electric planes to do any kind of business, flight school, package delivery, you're going to want to go where the infrastructure is. So we need to be forward-thinking in this. All right. The electric age of aviation. I'm really excited about it, and I really think if there's one takeaway is we need to be thinking about this, because it's really going to change the way that we work, live, and play. And I think there's probably some people maybe in this audience that are thinking, well, that sounds good. I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to get in an electric aircraft. So how does that affect me? Well, it affects you because it's going to affect the way, like I said, we live, work, and play. And to demonstrate that, there's a thing called the Machete Constant. In 1994, Cesar Machete came up with this, well, he studied this and figured this out. He said that from the day we walked out of the cave, humanity or human beings have been willing to commute 30 minutes to work and back. And his illustration of that are in these pictures. If you look on the top left, you have the city of Rome. That was a walking city in nearly 300 BC or AD. And that's how big it was, however long it took you to walk 30 minutes. It was 1,100 years later, Paris, we're still in the walking age, Paris was built, and it was even smaller than Rome, I guess, you know, because you walk slower in France, I don't know. But that is how long, that's how Paris grew, is how long it took you to walk 30 minutes. And then right below that, you see London. It became a rail city. You can see, you can kind of see the darker outline, and inside are each of the smaller cities. London grew because 30-minute commute could take you that far. And then on the far right, with Chicago being a streetcar city, you can see that all those European cities fit very nicely inside Chicago because of the Machete Constant. Basically, it means that the physical size of the city is limited by transportation, and as speed increases, you can occupy more land. So Machete didn't know about advanced air mobility or air mobility. I guess I got to throw this in here too. Here's Atlanta. It's a car city, and because of that, it's very spread out. And because of lack of planning, and if there's anybody from Atlanta here, apologies, but because of lack of planning, it's also a very unfun place to drive. And that's what you guys are here for. You guys are here to plan to make it so you're not in Atlanta, where every day you spend an hour or more in a traffic jam. So, like I said, now let's imagine if you have the access to an aircraft with vertical takeoff and landing capability that can fly 200 miles an hour, where you can work. This is a picture from Google Maps with a 100-mile ring circled around Danville. So you literally could live in Danville and work in Cincinnati and not have to deal with the traffic headaches. So that's a pretty big deal. That's a really big deal because you hear it all the time. People want to move out of the cities, and this is going to provide the opportunity. Talking with Joby Aircraft, they've said that they don't know how communities will grow based on this technology. They just know that they're going to change. And they said they're going to leave it to the communities to figure that out. So the opportunity is there to be forward-leaning, to look at this technology, to figure out how to incorporate the landing pads necessary to support this. It's all about planning and being prepared, and Joby plans to be flying aircraft in 3 years with people in them. So how do we go into this new era? All right, not sure how long I've been, how's my hour going? You guys didn't know I had an hour, right? You probably would have all left. I'm a military guy. I had military training, and that informs the way I do things. And one of the things the military taught me was how to deal with situations that are new or challenging or you've never really thought of before. And one of the ways they taught me to do that was in survival school. When I was a Coast Guard pilot in Alaska, you couldn't fly missions until you completed survival school, which was a week of essentially throwing you out into the woods and making you survive. They did let us take the clothes that were on our back. They limited the number of layers we could wear. And they said, you can take anything you want with you as long as it fits in a 1-quart Ziploc bag. And that's what you get for a week. So it was a very good training. Believe it or not, you really feel like you can survive after you learn that. But what I've learned is that survival training, the 7 steps that they taught us to survival, apply to any time you get into an unknown situation. And so I'm gonna kind of change the context of the words to apply them to this, and see how this works out. And so there's a picture of somebody starting a fire. Is there any survival experts here? Okay, well, if you ever get in a survival situation, fire is very, very, very low on the priorities. And the reason it's low, and they showed us it's true, fire is TV in the woods. As soon as you build a fire, as soon as you have a light in a warm spot, you don't move anymore. And I would kind of liken that to if you accept the status quo in what's going on in your community. If you are huddled around a fire, you're not doing what you need to do to survive. So you need to have all your ducks in a row before you settle down by the fire. All right, so bear with me as I go through this because I think it's fun. The first thing is recognize. It is amazing how in survival situations or anytime we're faced with something we don't know or we're uncertain about, we don't even recognize that we're in trouble. So many times people just wander off thinking that they're okay. They haven't recognized that they're in trouble or that there's something that they have to adapt to. And I told you earlier that we're in a new era of aviation. It's going to change the way we live, work, and play. So if that's not something new to adapt to, I think you're probably failing to recognize what progress is going to do. And so communications and transportation and data collection analysis are going to create unimaginable opportunities and challenges. You need to be ahead of it. And communities that act and prepare, they're going to be at the front of the line for this. These companies are going to go to the communities that are ready for them. And you have to be in a room like this to prove that you're doing that. If you say, not in my lifetime, then you've probably consigned yourself to not succeeding in this new environment. The next step is to inventory. You've got to take a look at what's working for you and working against you. You don't want to throw anything away that might help you, and you don't want to hold on to anything that might weigh you down. And so just a couple of things that I would be looking at for an inventory of great things is that Kentucky already is an aviation state, and this is an aviation initiative. So if Kentucky's an aviation state, we're postured to do well. Danville has a wonderful airport, one of the best in the states. I've got that written in my presentation. So you're well positioned already because of this. We have leadership. The fact that you're in here, leadership is required for survival. Leadership is required for success. The fact that you're in here points to the fact that you want your communities to survive and flourish. And we've had it at the state, local, and federal levels. All right, here's who knows don't say it out loud, who knows what the #1 industry in Kentucky is? Some people know. If you know it, raise your hand. Okay. All right, so if you raised your hand, don't answer the question. Who wants to guess at what the #1 industry is in Kentucky? Does anybody not know who has to guess? Are there any guessers out there? Okay, let me give you a hint. Where is the best bourbon made? It's made in Kentucky, right? So are we a bourbon state? We are. Is it our #1 export? No. All right. How about horses? We have some pretty good horses. We're a horse state, but is it our #1 export? Not close. 1 in 11 vehicles in America is manufactured in Kentucky. 1 in 11. And in the next few years, it'll probably be around 1 in 10, 1 in 9, because we're increasing that capacity. And that's a big industry. Who thinks automotive industry is our #1 industry? I'll just cut to the chase. It's not. If you take Kentucky's next 24 of the top 25 industries and add their revenue together, it does not make what we make in the sale of aviation parts and materials. Kentucky is an aviation state. Another thing I would look at is education and workforce development. Kentucky has great schools. We have EKU, have a 4-year program making pilots. We have Madisonville, you heard about that. The community college, that is a tremendous opportunity. The only two-year program, the only helicopter professional program in the world. And you saw that we need 2 million aviation professionals. Why not start making them here? We have programs at Breckenridge High School and Nelson County High School that are making aircraft mechanics and pilots in high school. Owensboro has an industry-driven program where a commuter airline is signing up kids, or anyone, you don't have to be a kid, you can't be a kid, in fact you have to be 23 to complete this, but if you can get a loan for $80,000, they will make you a commercial pilot and give you a job with them and give you the hours you need to make captain and give you the interview at the next level, and if you go through that process, they'll pay off that loan. You'll never pay a penny. Okay? That's a great opportunity, and that's here in Kentucky. And this airport here in Danville has a plan to make the Powell Center, and the Powell Center is going to be an incubator for this kind of thing. This takes community effort to make this happen, so that we are an aviation education state. Everybody knows we're geographically blessed. If you are within a one-day's drive of 80% of the population, imagine how close you are if you're in an electric aircraft. And if you're making these electric aircraft, you're not going to deliver them on a truck. You're going to fly them to where they go, and you're going to bring them back to where they need maintenance. Why wouldn't you position your factory in a place where it's within within half a day's flight of 80% of the population? So geographically blessed. Plus, we don't have hurricanes, and I'll tell you what, if you spend any time in the Coast Guard, you really appreciate not being near the coast when there's a hurricane. We also don't have blizzards and earthquakes, at least for now. We're good with that. Wildfires or thunderstorms, it's an ideal place to put these businesses. We have 57 great airports. We're building the 58th up in Gallatin County. And this is going to be bragging a little bit, but the Gallatin County Airport was planned for over 25 years. 25 years, we knew we needed it. It was in the system plan, and nothing was happening because no one wanted to say do it. When Governor Bevin came in, he told then Commissioner Steve Parker, build that airport. And Steve Parker said, okay, we're going to do it. We went and bought the land. We broke ground in 2019, and we're going to land the first plane next year. And it's just taking the action and the initiative to get it done. And you have one great airport, and that's Stuart Powell Field. As a commissioner, I know what our aviation is like. I know what our airports are like, and you really do have one of the best airports in the state. Can airports be better? Always. They can always be better, but I can tell you that the board at the airport is doing almost everything they can to make the airport serve their community as best that it can. Okay, so shelter is the next step in survival, and I would call this the airport. That's where this, like I said, all aviation starts at the airport. And so our airports have to be ready to support their current and future roles. We've already invested $50 million or more in each of our airports. And so if you do not continue to fund them, do not continue to support them, or create an environment where they're untenable, which could be simply by letting development happen too close to them, you are ignoring your airport at your peril. Steve Parker, the former commissioner, always would say, you get a benefit from your airport whether you step foot on it or not. And that is absolutely true. So don't ignore your airport. Webster County did, and it really came back to bite them. They had to lose their airport because they didn't maintain it. And as soon as, despite 3 years of warnings, the day we took their landing certificate away was the day they went into political craziness mode to try to get it back. They had 3 years they could have been working on it. So don't ignore your airport. The next is signals. When you're in a survival situation, you want to be found. When you want to be successful, you want people to know what you're doing. So let people know what you're doing. Don't hide your light under a bushel, right? You've got a great airport here. Show industry. Partner with economic development. Partner with your social media to advertise what's here. 3 times Economic Development Cabinet approached me within the last year looking for places to put businesses on airports. The airports didn't have the infrastructure to meet those needs. Be looking at what those needs are and be ready to support that. Train our workforce. Like I said, we're already an aviation education state, but we could do better. Get little kids out to the airport to get the passion going. Airport and aviation careers are not just great money, they're also life changers. I know I'm kind of running along here, but my deputy, Brad Schwant, he was being raised, when he was a young man, he was being raised by his older brother because his dad had kind of abandoned him and his mom was unable to take care of him. So he was being raised by his older brother. And he told his older brother, when I turn 16, I'm going to drop out of school because I don't like school. And his brother said, what are you going to do? He goes, I don't know. And his brother said, well, you think you're going to smoke dope? And he goes, yeah, I smoke dope now, so I'm probably going to do that. He goes, do you think you're going to sell dope so you can support your habit? He goes, yeah, that's a good way to support your habit. And he said, well, I'll tell you what. Ferguson, Missouri has this program, which is where they lived, where instead of going to your junior and senior year, you can study to become an aircraft mechanic. Try that. Just give it a try before you go off on your plan. And he did. He agreed to do that. And in December of 2019, he retired as the head of maintenance for UPS. Just imagine what kind of difference that we can make in kids' lives by introducing them to aviation and having these programs available. It makes me really, really emotional thinking about it. Sorry about that. All right, keeping going. After you got your signals out, you're going to need water to survive. I would call this support. Your airport could have perfect pavement today and everything it needs, but if it is not supported, it's going to die. It's like buying a new car and never doing any maintenance to it. It's going to die. You have to have support. You need support from elected leaders. You need to have a good board. You guys have a great board. But there are airport boards in Kentucky that elected leaders aren't aware of what they're doing. Elected leaders need to hold the boards accountable, and boards need to educate the community on what they're doing, and you guys have a great board here. Educators, I said it, get kids to the airport. Businesses, explore opportunities. Use trade associations to promote that. But if you sit back and think somebody else is doing this, you're wrong. You've got to help. This is a community effort. Don't put it all on Rob and Patty back there. Help them out every chance you get. Food, pretty low down on the survival thing. Again, you want to get yourself set before you get food. Food, I'm saying that's the infrastructure. We do need to make sure our pavement is good. We need to make sure the approaches are clear. We need to keep development from encroaching and choking out an airport. So that is planning, and that is supporting. Think about that when you think about how you want to grow or where you want to grow. The airport is absolutely essential, but you can't choke it out. And you have to let the airport grow because anything that isn't growing is also usually dying. So help the airport grow. Okay, the last step is play. A lot of people don't know that about survival. If you're in a survival situation and you don't give your mind an outlet, and a survival situation could be one day or two, but there are survival situations where it could be months. If you do not exercise your brain and give your body some exercise, all your best efforts are going to go to naught. So play is an essential part. The great thing about aviation is it is play. I mean, it's work and it's play. It's passionate people doing fun things that create opportunities that are unbelievable. So the play one, I think that comes pretty easy for the airport. Now let's talk a little bit about the airport that's here. All right, I was the commissioner for 3 years. Oh, go ahead.
And since you are here, if I heard you correctly, help me understand your concern about too much development close to the airport.
Well, usually that is in the form of housing developments. I was stationed in St. Pete Airport in Clearwater, Florida, in St. Pete, Florida, and they have a very nice crosswind runway. And right in the joint there, they put a housing development. And so when we were training, and I'm telling you this was every night that we would train to save lives, someone from that housing development would call to complain and say, why are you guys flying? Well, it's our job. But I think that was bad planning. You know, if you put, there is buildup that's compatible with an airport and buildup that's not. And you have a board, you have a Department of Aviation, you have FAA, you have consultants that can help guide you on that. But the best thing to do is have a plan to avoid that from the outset. Because as soon as you put incompatible development near an airport, the airport almost always loses.
So you're not talking about commercial?
I'm not talking, because commercial is compatible. That's perfectly compatible. It's just non-compatible buildup. All right, so I said it, Stuart Powell Field, the Danville-Bulloch County Airport, is one of the best in the States. As a commissioner in the state, I feel like I'm qualified to say that. And it has all the central elements. The physical structure, there's less than 5% of the GA airports in the state have crosswind runways. And the FAA is not in favor of crosswind runways, but the FAA doesn't always do what's the best for the airport. Believe it or not, they don't always do what's best for airports. So they don't like the cost of the crosswind runway, but they don't recognize the benefits. That runway makes your facility that much more valuable, and so you guys are already way ahead there. You have a beautiful terminal, one of the nicest in the state, and you know we know who to thank for that. A man named Stuart Powell. He had a vision, and he forced that vision, and it really has made your airport attractive. You have space to grow. You have commercial space. Now, I understand there's more opportunities to expand further, and you should plan for that. You should recognize that the value of the land around your airport for what it is. Land near airport is super valuable, not for living, but for industry and working. You have a wonderful concrete ramp that makes your airport support that jet traffic. Jet traffic is heavy and it crushes asphalt. The local officials, I think the best airports in Kentucky have support from the local officials, and the fact that I'm getting to talk to you says that there must be some local support here. So I appreciate the chance to come here and talk to you, and I appreciate the local officials who are interested in your airport. You have a very forward-leaning and progressive board. This board has done things that, you know, I always say unimaginable. Well, I get that from them. I mean, they have dinner theater at the airport. You know, that might not sound like an aviation-compatible thing, but anytime you get people to the airport, you're serving the community and you're letting the community know what's there. So you have a very progressive and forward-thinking board. The board has plans. The board has current tenants that they're trying to support and please, and they have future plans to grow. And they have a good plan, I think, to build a facility to support a current tenant, which frees up space for another current tenant that is more appropriate for that other appropriate tenant, and frees up space for other individual plane users. And that is a great plan. It needs support. When I was the commissioner, I completely supported that plan, because anything that improves the viability of the airport is good. And then I mentioned earlier they have plans for the Powell Center. The interest for aviation starts at airports. You've got to get kids to the airport to get them interested and get them hooked, and they're going to seek opportunities there. So you've got to have a Powell Center. You've got to have something that you can take the kids to so they can get their hands on. Maybe a playground would be good. I don't know. They're actually doing that, if you didn't know. So I didn't make that up. They have a plan to increase revenue generating capacity and attract business. And so it's a great airport. It's a great asset. And at the beginning of this, I said I wanted you to know that you should invest in aviation and invest in airports because all aviation starts at airports. I really feel like when you grow in the direction of your airport with compatible growth, you're doing the right thing. I really feel like if you start an aviation education program, you're doing the right thing. If we're making mechanics, I told you about the need for pilots, 700,000 pilots, 700,000 mechanics. That means there's going to be a lot of airplanes out there. Airplanes need maintenance. Those big planes aren't going to be electric. They're going to be fuel, and they need maintenance. If you are in the business of maintaining these aircraft, and understand UPS currently flies a significant portion of their fleet to China for maintenance. They fly the planes to get maintained in China and then bring them back. If we were building dozens of mechanics here in Danville and just anywhere around here, you would build a facility where the workforce is. It's way easier to build where the workforce is than build a facility and then say, workforce, come to me, because it's hard to get people to move. So I just can't emphasize how important it is to invest or plan to invest in aviation workforce development and aviation education. And on a good news front, our legislature last year created an aviation caucus. And of course, caucuses are there for information and educational purposes. There's 138 legislators, 68 joined the caucus immediately. Half of the legislators are interested enough in aviation that they joined immediately. So if you don't think that there's opportunities there to get the support of our state government to support your efforts here, well, I think you're missing a big picture here. I think that one of the things they're going to do is try to get some funding for pavement back. We have a huge deficit in pavement maintenance. We have a $70 million backlog in pavement maintenance. We need to spend $10 million a year for the next 7 years. But we also need to continue to invest in aviation education, and my idea is that that money would go to the Department of Aviation, because even though it's an education thing, they would know how to spend it right. They would spend it on infrastructure at airports and programs at airports that actually work, rather than buying something off the shelf, giving it to teachers and say, here, aviation education. So I can't emphasize it enough. If you're not planning for that, you should be. So beyond that, like I said, I'm really passionate about it. I might not come off like that, but it's really important. Airports are more important than they've ever been. Aviation is more important than it's ever been. And you guys all get to witness the dawn of the electric era of aviation. We need to be ready for it. And if we're ready for it, it's going to come to us first. If we're not, we'll be watching Ohio and Tennessee get this and wondering why it still takes 3 hours to get from Pikeville to Lexington. I think I used up probably more than my hour, and it's the last thing, so I'll turn it over to John.
Todd, great presentation. You are the foremost expert on these things, and we appreciate you being here today for sure. A couple of points, just, and if there are any questions, please raise your hand, let me know. Go ahead, yep.
With the age of electric planes, does that change the designs of the airports, length of runway, just one particular?
So it will, like I said, it will have a smaller demand, because for right now, actually one of the pictures I showed a commercial plane on my slide, that was a hybrid electric engine. So big planes might have hybrid electrics and they'll need long runways. But with these commuter type planes that can carry now 8 people and soon probably 15 people, I think you'll actually get away with shorter runways. So on one hand, runway length will not be as impacted, but on the other hand, one of the things that happened in my short time with state government is 5,000 feet was the golden number for commercial aviation. And we are learning that because of insurance companies, 5,500 feet now is the minimum golden number. You can land at 5,000 feet if it's a perfect day, but if it's raining or snowy or icy, they want the people to have 5,500 feet. So I do think that the sweet spot for runway length is going to be about the same. And it's probably going to be about 55, maybe 6,000 feet. And most Kentucky airports do not have that.
It would appear that you need more pads than you used to.
So,
I feel like you have.
I'm a helicopter pilot. The great thing about being a helicopter pilot is I come across, every runway I come across is extremely short, about 75 to 100 feet long and 5,000 feet wide. If you can take off and land vertically, you can land on any runway and you can land on any pad. Joby already has a partnership with the company that does most of the parking garages at commercial airports, including the one in Lexington. And that partnership is allowing them to build pads on the tops of parking garages. And so, that is going to be a very well-placed pad. You'll be able to leave here and go land on the roof of the parking garage in Lexington and get on a plane. But in your communities, I think that is, when Joby came in June, they said we want to talk to community leaders to let them know that they need to be thinking about where to place these pads in the urban environment so that they can get people as close as they can to their destinations. So it is going to be a lot more pads, but it can be on rooftops, parking garages, could be in backyards. It could be in backyards. The FAA is allowing this advanced air mobility, these electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, to use helicopter standards now for landing pads, because the helicopter standards are way more stringent than what they'll need, because they don't carry petroleum fuel. So there's a lot less safety stuff needed on these aircraft, and they need a much smaller footprint. So yeah, you'll need to plan for pads and to make this work.
Other questions for Todd? Todd, thank you. Again, this is just one more strategy that as a community should be considered. Think about going back to the very beginning. Your community is your storefront. What's your strategy? Where do you want to be? How are you going to serve your clients? Who's going to talk to the customers? Who's going to manage the finances? Who's going to build the inventory? Those kind of things are exactly what we're trying to get to today. So I think, the agenda that was put together was fantastic. You had industry leaders from all walks of economic development talking to you today. Hopefully it spurred good creative thought processes, and hopefully it helps with strategic planning as you guys go forward. Are there any other final questions or comments from the group for Todd or for me, or does anybody else need to say anything? I certainly appreciate having the opportunity to moderate and not have to put presentations together. These guys all did a great job. Thank you so much, and good luck with the rest of the process. Thank you all.